Welcome to my lecture for the Kurdish Mathematics School. I was supposed to give two lectures, but unfortunately the first one had some technical problems, so I will give only one lecture, which is just now, on the square root of 2, the golden ratio, and the Fibonacci sequence. I will start by some explanation about the A4 format. This is a A4 paper. It is the most usual size for a paper in many countries. And the size of this paper has the following property. If you split it into two equal parts like this, you get two papers, which are this one, which have the property that they have the same proportion as the big one. The proportion is the ratio between the long side and the small side. How do you check that the ratio is the same? There are several ways for doing that. One possibility is that you put the small one on the corner, the right corner of the big one, and you check that the three edges which are here are on a straight line. So this explains that it is the same proportion. There is another way which is very similar. You just look at this paper like this, and you see that the small one will just hide the big one. It means that the proportion is the same. So this is called A4, and this is called A5. On the other hand, if you take two A4 papers, you get the A3 format. So again, if you take two A3 formats, you get the A2 format, which is this one. So both half is a A4. And again, if you enlarge, and if you take two A2 formats, you get the A1 format, which is this one. And this is just an example with the poster of SIMPA School in 2019. So I explained how to split A4 paper in two parts. I would like to make another splitting of the A4 paper. So you take another A4 paper and you remove a square. How to remove it? You just fold it in this way, and then you remove the square, which is obtained just on the top. So if you remove the square, so it gives something like this. What you get, the remaining part, is a rectangle, a long rectangle. So this is the rectangle that you get. Now this rectangle, again, you remove a square. And if you remove a square, you get this. But you see that you can again remove a square, and then you get a very tiny rectangle. And the fact is that this tiny rectangle has the same proportion as the one you started with. So the difference with the A4 paper is that you remove two squares, and then you get the tiny rectangle. But otherwise, the proportion is the same. We will explain this by looking at the slides. So now I go to the slides, and I will explain with the slides why we have these two properties of splitting A4 paper. The first one when you split it in two equal parts, and the second one when you remove one square to start with, and then two squares. So my talk is about square root of 2, the golden ratio, and the Fibonacci sequence. The square root of 2 has an approximate value which is 1.414 and so on. The golden ratio is a little bit larger. It is 1 plus square root of 5 over 2, and it is 1.618 and so on. I will explain that these two numbers are irrational numbers, and I will give some properties of these two numbers. After that, I will speak on the Fibonacci sequence, which occurs in many situations in mathematics as well in the real life, and I will review some of the properties. The number square root of 2 occurs in a Babylonian clay tablet, which gives an accurate sexagesimal approximation to square root of 2. If you look at this tablet, there is something which is written here, which has been deciphered as being the value in the basis 60 of the square root of 2. It's a very close approximation. Base 60, it is similar to say that we have 1 hour, 24 minutes, 51 seconds. So it's 1 plus 24 divided by 60, plus 51 divided by 60 square, plus 10 over 60 to the cube. And if you write it in decimal places, it's 1.414212. And the actual value of square root of 2 is 1.414213. So you see that it is very similar. I would like to point out that for this number, which is a rational number, it is an integer divided by 60 to the cube, the decimal expansion is ultimately periodic. You see, after the 1, which is here, you have 2, 9, 6, 2, 9, 6, and so on. But for square root of 2, you see that it is not the same, it is not periodic, at least as far as the first decimals are concerned. So I told you just before about the A4 format. In centimeters, it is 297 for the large side and 210 for the small side. What I call the proportion of this paper is the quotient ratio 297 divided by 210. And if you simplify by 3, you get 99 divided by 70. And this is an approximation to square root of 2. Again, this is a rational number. And you see that the decimal expansion of this number is periodic starting from 2855714. It is what we call ultimately periodic, because it is a rational number and the square root of 2 is not. So this is the A4 paper. This is one of the formats. The formats are ABC. You see here on Wikipedia, you will see more information about the different formats. The standards are A, B, and C, and all of these standards have the property that the proportion is square root of 2. It means that if you take a rectangle with the long side, which is x, and the small side, which is 1, if you split it in two parts, you get two rectangles with the sides 1 and x over 2. The proportion of the large rectangle is x. The proportion of the small rectangle is 2 divided by x. And the fact that the two proportions are the same is exactly the same as to say that x squared is equal to 2. So x is the square root of 2. Let us take a rectangle with the format square root of 2. I told you that if we split it in two parts, we get two papers, and they have the same proportion. That you check by looking to the fact that the three edges are on a straight line, and that you check by looking at the small one, which will just hide the large one. These geometric properties of the number square root of 2 enables us to prove the irrationality, as I will explain in a few minutes. The number square root of 2 is twice its inverse. Square root of 2 is 2 divided by square root of 2. The A4 format, as I showed before, if you double it, you get, so you take two A4 papers, you get a A3 paper. If you take two A3 papers, you get a A2 paper, and two A2 papers give A1, and then you have A0. And the definition of A0 is that, first of all, the ratio is an approximation of square root of 2, and the area is 1 square meter, which means that the long side will be 118.9 centimeters, and the small one will be 84.1. The B and C format, as I told you, have also the proportion square root of 2, but the definition of B0 is that the small side is 1 meter, and so the long side is essentially square root of 2. And if you look at the B7 format, it is the size of a passport, 88 millimeters times 125 millimeters. The C0 format has the values for the sides. The long one is 8th root of 8, and the small one is 1 divided by 8th root of 2. The C6 paper is the size of an envelope which just fits for A6 paper. If you look at the Xerox machine, you will see that the proportion for enlarging and reducing are just given by approximation of square root of 2, fourth root of 2, and the inverse of these two numbers. So the A4 format is 29.7 by 21. If you double it, you have the A3 format. If you double the A3, you have the A2. If you double A2, you have A1, and then you have A0. So you see that the small side of A0 is the large side of A1, and the small side of A1 is the large side of A2. On the other side, if you split a A4 paper into two parts, you get the A5 papers where the long side is 21. So let us prove the irrationality of square root of 2. I will give two proofs of this result. For the first one, I start with A4 paper, and I assume that square root of 2 is A over B. So this A4 paper has a long side which is A, so this is A, and the small side which is B. A over B, assume that it is square root of 2. You put two A4 papers together, so you have a rectangle where the sides are 2B for the large one and A for the small one. So here, the yellow one is the A4 paper, and if you look at the green one, you check that it is again a rectangle with a proportion square root of 2. You just compute A prime equal to B minus A, and B prime is A minus B, but this comes from the fact that the 2 points here are on a straight line. So this is again a rectangle with sides which are smaller than A and B, and the proportion is again square root of 2. So you write square root of 2 as A prime over B prime, where A prime and B prime are smaller than A and B, and by the infinite descent of Fermat, you get a contradiction. Or if you prefer, you start with A and B, which are minimal, and you see that you have a contradiction. So square root of 2 is irrational. I would like to give another very similar proof of the irrationality of square root of 2. Assume that A and B are two integers, minimal, such that A square equals 2B square, and you take two squares. The yellow one has the side B, and the green one has the size A. So A square is 2B square, which means that you have some painting, the green one and the yellow one, and you have the same amount of painting in green and in yellow. Now what you do is that you put the two yellow squares here, and again you use your painting. So you first paint the yellow one, only this part, and only this part. So something is remaining. What is remaining? You can paint this one if you wish, and you can also paint the two green ones which are there. And therefore, the amount of green painting here for the two small ones and the red painting here will be the same, which means that this square has an area which is the sum of the two small ones, and again, by infinite descent, you get a contradiction. The next thing that I showed before showing the slides was that if I start with a rectangle with the proportion square root of 2, if I remove a square, I get a rectangle, which is the one which is there, for which I can remove two squares. I first remove one square here, the light blue, and then I remove two squares, the dark blue. So we explain this as follows. The first rectangle, the big one, has a proportion square root of 2. And square root of 2 is 1 plus 1 divided by 1 plus square root of 2. So 1 divided by 1 plus square root of 2 will give the proportion of this rectangle which is there. So the proportion will be 1 plus square root of 2. And 1 plus square root of 2, you remove the two squares which are here, and then you get another rectangle which is there, but this rectangle has the same proportion as the one that you had before. And therefore, what you did by removing two squares, you can do it again by removing two squares here, and then again you have a rectangle with the same proportion. So you can remove two squares infinitely often. and you always get a smaller and smaller, a tiny small rectangle, which has the same proportion. So this process does not end. If you start with a rational number, so I start with 99 divided by 70 because this is the proportion of the A4 paper, you can remove 1 square and you have 1 plus 29 divided by 70. This is the point here, the coordinate of this point. From this point, so you look at 70 divided by 29, which is the inverse of this. You can remove 2 squares and you have this point, which is 29, 12. You remove 2 squares and you have 5, 12, which is this one. You remove 2 squares and you have 5, 2. And then when you remove 2 squares, you have 2 plus 1 over 2. So the process stops, and it should stop because you have a decreasing sequence of positive integers, and so it's a finite sequence. And if you start from any 2 integers instead of 99 and 70, the process will stop. So with a rational proportion, the process stops, and with square root of 2, the process does not stop. So this is a proof of the irrationality of square root of 2. What I did by removing squares is just the basic for the continued fraction algorithm. From square root of 2, we remove 1, and then the remainder is 1 divided by 1 plus square root of 2. This square root of 2, I replace it by the value which is given on the right-hand side. And so the 1 plus square root of 2 will become 2 plus 1 over 1 plus square root of 2. And then I repeat the process with this number, and I will get 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2, and so on. And so this is the continuous fraction expansion of square root of 2. And we use the shorter notation 1, 2, 2, 2. So this corresponds to the number of squares that you remove at each step. An even shorter notation is to write 1 and 2 with a bar, and the bar means that you repeat the 2 infinitely often. So for the A4 format, we have seen that we remove 1 square, 2 square, 2 square, 2 squares, and 2 squares. So this ratio is 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and it's a finite continued fraction. And you will get a finite continued fraction if and only if you start with a rational number. So this is a so-called criterion of irrationality. By the way, this is the second criterion of irrationality that we see in this talk. The first one was with the decimal expansion. The number is rational if and only if the decimal expansion is ultimately periodic. And now for the continued fraction is finite if and only if the number is rational. I would like to explain how to use this continued fraction to solve a puzzle that was asked by Mahalanobis to Ramanujan in the beginning of the 20th century. So Mahalanobis asked the following question. There is a street in the town of Louvain in Belgium where houses are numbered consecutively. One of the house numbers had the peculiar property that the total number of the numbers lower than it was exactly equal to the total of the numbers above it. Furthermore, the mysterious house number was greater than 50, but less than 500. Okay, let us forget the last furthermore and look at this question. We want to find the house number with the total of numbers lower is exactly the same as the total of number above. So one example is to take the house number 6 in a street with 8 houses. On one side of the house, you have the houses of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the sum is 15. On the other side, you have the house numbers 7 and 8, and the sum is 15, so it's the same. Another example is 35 in a street with 49 houses. On one side, you have the sum from 1 to 34, which the sum is 595. On the other side, you start with 36 and you go to 49. And so the sum is 1 plus 2 plus 49, which is 49 times 50 divided by 2, minus the sum from 1 to 35, which is 35 times 36 divided by 2. And so the sum is again 595. So we will look at a solution where the house number is between 50 and 500. But let me give two other solutions. One solution is to have the house number 1 in a street with one house. There is no house on one side, no house on the other side, so the sum is 0, which is a solution. But there is even a more trivial solution. If the house number is 0 in a street with no house, then the sum on the empty set is 0. And this is reminiscent of the question of Ramanujan to his teacher: if no banana is distributed to no student, will each student get a banana? Okay, let us try to solve this puzzle. Let us call m the house number and n the number of houses. So on one side you have the sum from 1 to m minus 1, and on the other side you have the sum from m plus 1 to n. So on the left hand side you have m minus 1 divided by 2. On the right hand side you have n plus 1 over 2 minus m plus 1 divided by 2. If you simplify this, you get the equation 2n squared equal n times n plus 1. N times n plus 1 is, we can write it as 1/4 of 2n plus 1 squared minus 1. So we multiply by 4, we have 8n squared, and on the right hand side we have 2n plus 1 squared minus 1. So this is a special case of the equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1, where x is odd and y is even. And so we will look at this equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1. It's clear that Ramanujan knew how to replace the puzzle by the equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1. I will first explain how to solve this equation using some algebraic way, which is certainly not the one that Ramanujan used. We look at this equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1, and we write the left hand side as x minus y square root of 2 times x plus y square root of 2. So the product should be 1. We have a trivial solution, which is x equal 1, y equals 0, and it corresponds to the street with no house, and the house number is 0. There is the first non-trivial solution, which is x equal 3 and y equal 2. You have 9 minus 8, which is equal to 1. Once you have a solution, you just take the solution that you write 3 minus 2 square root of 2, and you take the powers, power nu. If you take nu equals 0, you get the trivial solution. If you take nu equal 1, you get the solution 3, 2, which gives the house number 1 in a street with one house. But if you take nu equal 2, you see that you will get the solution 17 and 12 for x and y, which will give the solution n equal 8 and m equal 6 for the number of houses in the street and the house number, which is 6. So this is what we have seen before. And if you take the cube, then you get the solution 9970, which gives the house number 35 in a street with 49 houses. Let us look at this solution of the equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1, 99 and 70, and you remember that 99 divided by 70 is the ratio of the A4 paper, 297 divided by 210. This is not a coincidence. So you will get the solution to the puzzle by taking nu equal 4, but this is not how Ramanujan did. Ramanujan certainly was aware of the work of Brahmagupta in 628, who solved in integers the equation x squared minus 92 y squared equal 1, and he found the smallest solution. The smallest value for x is 1151, and y is 120. And for that, Brahmagupta used something which was very close to the continued fraction expansion. It turned out that the continued fraction expansion of square root of 92 starts with 9, because 9 squared is 81, which is just less than 92. And then you have plus 1 over 1, plus 1 over 1, plus 1 over 2, plus 1 over 4, and so on. And this is the continuous fraction expansion of square root of 92. You see that there is a bar here, which means that the continued fraction is infinite, because square root of 92 is not a rational number, but it's periodic. So you repeat this 1, 1, 2, 4, 2 infinitely often. So the way to solve the equation which is here, the recipe, is to remove the 18 and to stop at this point 1 here, and you have a finite continued fraction, which is therefore the continued fraction of a rational number. The numerator is 1151, which is the solution x to the equation x squared minus 92y squared, and the y is 120. So this is what Brahmagupta did in 628, and this work was pursued by Bhaskara II much later, with a much more difficult equation to solve, which is x squared minus 61y squared equal 1, and the smallest solution is given by y equal 226 million, and so on. And he used the method of Brahmagupta. He looked at the continuous fraction expansion of square root of 61, and using this continuous fraction expansion, he found the smallest solution. If you look at the recipe which I gave you with Brahmagupta, you should stop before the 14 and stop here. But if you do that, you find a solution of the equation with minus 1. So it's a little bit more complicated to get the solution with plus 1, and this is the smallest solution. Okay, so let us do that with the equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1. We take the continuous fraction expansion of square root of 2, which is 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then we split it after an odd number of 2. The first splitting will give 1, which is the trivial solution. The second splitting gives 1, 2, which gives 3 and 2. And then the second solution is obtained by taking 1, 2, 2, 2. If you compute this rational number, you find 17 divided by 12, and this gives the next solution, 17 and 12, for the equation x squared minus 2y squared equal 1. You can look at the next solution, and if you look at the next solution, you have to take 5 2's in the continued fraction expansion of square root of 2, and we have seen that this gives 99 divided by 70, and so this gives the solution, the third solution, non-trivial solution to the equation. And now to get the next solution, the fourth solution, you get 7 2's, which are here, you get a rational number, you compute it, and you find that it is 577 divided by 408. In terms of the street number, you have to write the denominator as an even number, it is 2 times 204, and the numerator is an odd number, it is 2 times 288 plus 1. And so the solution to the puzzle is that the house number is 204 in a street with 288 houses. And you check it like this. The next solution is 1189. It is greater than 50, but it is less than 500. So there is a unique solution to the puzzle of Mahalanobis. Now there is a way to compute the sequence of solution, which is the solution which are given by the street number, the number of a house. The sequence of numbers is called the sequence of balancing number. It starts with 0, 1, 6, 35, and 204. And we have an infinite sequence. And it's not clear whether Ramanujan knew how to compute this sequence, but there is a very simple way to compute it. If you want to find 204, you multiply 35 by 6, and you remove the previous one, which is 6. So this number here is 6 times this one minus this one here. So this is a so-called linear recurrent sequence. And the initial conditions are 0 and 1. Once you know 0 and 1, you know all the other ones. And the number of houses is also given by a sequence that you find on this website. What is this website? It is the online encyclopedia of integer sequences, which was founded by Sloan and which is maintained by him. And this is a very interesting and useful database. If you have a sequence of integers, which you have a few numbers and you want to know what is the next one, you just put the sequence of numbers that you know into this database and you will get a lot of hits. So I mentioned the fact that the decimals of square root of 2 are not ultimately periodic. We can compute some decimals of square root of 2 and we get this sequence of integers between 0 and 9, the digits, decimal digits of square root of 2. We can compute also the binary digits of square root of 2. And we can ask, what can we say on these sequences? We know that they are infinite, so they are not ultimately periodic. But it's almost all what we know for sure on these decimals. A lot of decimals of square root of 2 has been computed, and recently some more decimals were computed because of this number square root of 2 occurs when we want to compute decimal of or binary digits of the number pi. Émile Borel, in two papers in 1909 and 1950, looked at these numbers. He did not know so many decimal digits, but he was interested and puzzled about the decimal digits of square root of 2, and he asked some questions. The question that he asked in 1950 was whether the decimal digits of square root of 2 follow some rule or not. And he suggested that they satisfy the laws which are valid for almost all real numbers, which means that there is no regularity in the decimal or binary expansion of square root of 2. And he suggested that it is the same for any real irrational algebraic number, and for the basis 2 or the basis 10 or any basis. So this is what he suggested. If you prefer, you take the binary expansion of square root of 2, and we know a very large number of binary digits, and you take a sequence of binary digits, you can use it safely as a sequence of random numbers. But this is a conjecture, and very few things are known about that. If you, for example, ask whether the number 7, the digit 7 occurs infinitely often in the decimal expansion of square root of 2, we do not know. But we do not know if we take one digit between 0 and 9, any real algebraic number, alpha. Is it true that the digit c occurs infinitely often in the decimal expansion of alpha? There is no example of C alpha for which we can prove that it is true. And the conjecture is that it is always true. So this is one example of a very challenging problem. Okay, after the number square root of 2, I would like to speak on the golden ratio. And again, I will start with geometry, and I would like to define what is a nice rectangle. And the definition of a nice rectangle, we use the name nice rectangle. I say that a rectangle is nice if, when you remove a square, you get a smaller rectangle, which is also a nice rectangle. So I use the name a nice rectangle in the definition of a nice rectangle. But it makes sense for the following reason. Let us say that the nice rectangle has the proportion phi, this Greek letter phi. So one side is 1 and the other side is phi. The small rectangle that you have here, the dark blue, has one side which is 1, it is a long side, and the small side is phi minus 1 because you have removed 1. Now the proportion of the small rectangle is 1 divided by phi minus 1. The proportion of the large one is phi, and so the equation is phi equal 1 over phi minus 1, which gives the value of phi, and this is the golden ratio. It is 1 plus square root of phi divided by 2. So a nice rectangle is a rectangle which has the proportion, the golden ratio, 1 plus square root of phi divided by 2. This golden ratio, by definition, has the property that phi is equal to 1 plus 1 over phi. This phi here, I replace it by the value given by the right-hand side of the formula. So this phi becomes 1 plus 1 over phi. And then you repeat the process, and you see that the continued fraction expansion of phi is completely periodic. It starts with 1, and there are only ones in this continued fraction. It means that if you start with a rectangle with the golden ratio as a proportion of side length, at each step you get a square and a smaller rectangle with the same proportion of the side length. The continued fraction expansion of phi is infinite, periodic, and the number phi is not a rational number, as I explained before. So square root of phi is not a rational number. So this is what we obtain. We start with a rectangle with one side which is phi. We get a smaller rectangle where the sides are 1 and 1 over phi. So we shrink by multiplying the size of the starting rectangle by 1 over phi. We divide by phi. So the next rectangle that we get, one side is 1 over phi square, and the other side is 1 over phi. And then you have 1 over phi cube, 1 over phi 4, and so on. And so this is how you get the sequence of rectangles, which are all golden rectangles. So I mentioned the number square root of 2, then the number phi, and they share a number of similar properties. More precisely, it is a similarity between 1 plus square root of 2 and phi that I would like to point out. Let us start with a pentagon, regular pentagon, which has a side 1. So this is a small pentagon. And you look at the diagonal. There are 3 diagonals, but they all have the same side. And let us look at this length. I will explain that this length is the golden ratio. And the proof is not so difficult. You consider the line along this side. You continue this line up to here. You continue this line here up to there. And you look at the different angles that you have. And you will see that this angle here is the same as the angle at this one, which means that this triangle is isosceleus. And also the same proof will give you that this triangle here is isosceleus. So the length of this diagonal is the same as the length of this side of something which is a big pentagon, because this angle is just the same as this one. And so here you have a big red pentagon. All the sides are phi, and the diagonal of the pentagon, the big one, the red one, will be phi square, because you have enlarged by a coefficient phi. But at the same time, this side here is phi plus 1, so phi square is phi plus 1. So this is for phi. It turned out that 1 plus square root of 2 is the diagonal of the octagon. There are several diagonals now, but you look at this diagonal here. The side here is 1. The side here is square root of 2 divided by 2, by the Pythagoras theorem. This is the same. And this side here, this length here, is 1. So the diagonal has a length which is square root of 2 divided by 2 plus 1 plus square root of 2 divided by 2, which is 1 plus square root of 2. So you see it's quite similar. The number phi is defined by phi square equal 1 plus phi, which you can write as phi is the square root of 1 plus phi. Now this phi, you replace it by the formula, which gives that phi is square root of 1 plus square root of 1 plus phi, and you repeat, and you have what is called the nested root. This nested root occurs in a question which was asked in the Journal of the Indian Mathematical Society. And there were some problems, and Ramanujan solved two problems. One was for this nested root, that he found the value which is 3. And the other one is for this one, and he found the value which is 4. So these are just examples of nested root, but you get another example with square root of 2. You can write the definition of square root of 2 as 1 plus square root of 2 square is 1 plus 2 times 1 plus square root of 2. This is the definition of square root of 2. Now, you write this as 1 plus square root of 2 is the square root of this number. And this 1 plus square root of 2, you replace it by the same formula, which gives you 1 plus square root of 2 is the square root of 1 plus 2 times square root of 1 plus 2 times 1 plus square root of 2. And you repeat, and you find a nested root for 1 plus square root of 2, which is given by this infinite sequence of square roots. Okay, so this was the main things I wanted to say about square root of 2 and the golden ratio. Now I would like to go to the Fibonacci sequence. I will start with a question of genealogy. How many ancestors do we have? So we start with yourself. You have a father and a mother. Your father and your mother have a father and a mother, and each of them has a father and a mother. So if you start with you, the number of ancestors is 1 at the level 0. At the level 1, you have 2 ancestors. At the next level, you have 4. At the next level, you have twice this number. So the sequence is un equal n 2 to the n. So this is the so-called geometric series. Un plus 1 equal 2 un. We already saw a linear recurrent sequence, and this is another example of a linear recurrent sequence, which is called the geometric series. This is not completely universal, because if you look at the bees genealogy, there is a property that the male honeybees are born from unfertilized eggs, and the female honeybees are born from fertilized eggs. So the males have only a mother, but females have both a mother and a father. So you take a male, he has a mother, the mother has a father and a mother, the grandfather of the first one has only a mother, and the grandmother has a father and a mother, and so on. You continue like this. This mother has a father and a mother. And you ask, how many ancestors have a bee? So if you look at the genealogy of a male bee, starting from the bottom, the number of bees that you have is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. The number of female is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And the rule is un plus 2 equal un plus 1 plus un. So it's a third example of a linear recurrent sequence. And you check it as follows. You start with u1 equal 1, u2 equal 1, and the rule will be un plus 2 equal un plus 1 plus un, and this will be the total number of the total population at a given level. The number female at a given level is the total population at the previous level, and the number of males at a given level is the number of female at the previous level, just because the males have only a mother and the female has a mother and a father. So this gives the rule. If you look at the total number of bees, you have 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. The number of male and female follows the same pattern, but you start with 1, 0 here and 0, 1 there. This sequence, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 8, 5, 8, was called the Lamé series at the beginning because Gabriel Lamé used it to give an upper bound for the number of steps in the Euclidean algorithm for the greatest common divisor. However, in 1876, Edouard Lucas found them in a copy of the Liber Abaci of Leonardo da Pisa. And after that, this sequence is called the Fibonacci sequence. It starts with 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. It is defined by f0 equals 0, f1 equals 1, and fn plus 2 is fn plus 1 plus fn. And of course, you find this sequence on the online encyclopedia of integer sequences. This Fibonacci sequence occurs in the Liber Abaci of Fibonacci. Fibonacci means that he was the son of Bonacci, who traveled around the Mediterranean. So both the father and the son traveled together. And Guglielmo Bonacci, the son, learned the technique of Al-Khwarizmi from the Arab people who were traveling and making some shopping with his father. And so he wrote this Liber Abaci in 1202. So here is the sequence, Fibonacci sequence, and you get a number of such integers on the Sloan online encyclopedia of integer sequences. The way that Fibonacci introduced this sequence was by considering the growth of a rabbit population. And he asked the following problem. A newly born pair of rabbits, a male and a female, are put in a field. Rabbits are able to mate at the age of 1 month, so that at the end of the second month, a female can produce another pair of rabbits. Rabbits never die, and a mating pair always produces. So you look at how many rabbits there are altogether, and the puzzle is how many pairs will there be in 1 year? 1 year is 12 months, and so it's the number of the sequence of Fibonacci of index 12, and this number turns out to be 12 square, 144. So this is a modelization. You start with a young pair. In the second month, it becomes an adult pair. This adult pair gives rise to a young pair, but the adult pair never dies, so it's always there. The young pair becomes adult, but the adult pair, the first one, gives birth to another young pair, and after that, both of them give rise to young pairs, and you have the sequence 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. Either by, if you look at the total number of rabbits at 1 month or the previous month. So this number is the sum of this one plus this one. You can get the exponential sequence by another modelization of a population growth. If you take mice, on the first month you have 1 pair, but you assume that they give birth to another pair of mice the next month. So the second month you have 2 pairs, and the third month you have 4 pairs, and then the 4th month you have twice the number of the previous number, so it gives rise to the exponential sequence. I would like to put the Fibonacci square into a geometric perspective in the following way. You start with 1 square of size 1. Next to it, you put another square of side 1, and so you have a rectangle where the sides are 2 and 1. Along this rectangle, you put a square of side 2. So you have a rectangle where the sides are 2 and 3. So along the long side, you put a square of side 3. You have a rectangle of side 3 and 5, and you put a square of side 5, and then of side 8, and then you get the sequence of Fibonacci squares. So this gives a geometric construction of the Fibonacci sequence, where you get fn plus 2 equal fn plus fn plus 1. And this, if you draw a picture by taking some curves, which are just a part of a circle here, when you draw this, you get a kind of spiral, and this spiral is something which occurs in nature. It occurs in the Nautilus shape of the ammonite, like this, and you see that it really follows the pattern of the construction of the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci numbers, and also the golden ratio, occurs in the study of the position of the leaves on a stem and the reason for them, and this is called the phyllotaxy. if you look at the number of petals of flowers or the spiral pattern to permit optimal exposure to sunlight in the pine cone, pineapple, Romanesco cauliflower, cactus, you will see the Fibonacci sequence which occurs. So in the leaf arrangement, if you look at the leaves, you will find the Fibonacci sequence. You will find that most often the number of leaves is given by the sequence of Fibonacci, 3, 5, 8, and so on. There are some studies which are done about that. So when you look at the spirals which occurs in nature, like the pine cone or the sunflower here, you will see some spiral, and the number of spiral that you see is given by the sequence of Fibonacci. So these are just examples where you see these spirals, which occurs quite clearly here, and these spirals are given by Fibonacci numbers. Kepler used the Fibonacci sequence in his study of the dodecahedron and icosahedron and the symmetry of order 5 of the flowers. And there are some interesting papers related with the phyllotaxy. You will get some more information in the two books. One of them is by Peter Stevens, Patterns in Nature, and another one is on Growth and Forms by Darcy Wentworth Thompson. Why are there so many occurrences of the Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio in nature? One explanation is that what we see in nature are the objects which have a small algorithmic complexity in the sense of Kolmogorov, which means that they are generated by a short program. A spectacular example is the Sierpinski triangles, which are obtained by splitting a triangle by removing the triangle which is here, and then you repeat the process. You get something which looks rather complicated, but which occurs in nature because the program to generate a Sierpinski triangle is quite simple. It's a very few code lines. The Fibonacci numbers occurs in many circumstances, like the reflection of a ray of light. I will not give too much details about that. I will explain where you can find my slides on my website. The level of energy of an electron of an atom of hydrogen. Again, we get the Fibonacci number. And also the rhythmic patterns, which occurs in the Sanskrit prosody, like the work of Pingala. I would like to conclude by explaining some connection between the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. We have seen that the golden ratio has the continuous fraction expansion given by only once. If you truncate this continuous fraction expansion after one step, 2 steps, 3 steps, what you get is the sequence of quotient of consecutive Fibonacci numbers. This is what I explained with the geometric construction of the Fibonacci sequence. So this corresponds to the number of squares that we construct, and we have the side of the square, which is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. And this sequence has just the finite continued fraction, which is given by some ones. And so the limit of fn plus 1 divided by fn is the golden ratio. Phi, 1 plus quarter phi over 2, is the limit of fn plus 1 over fn. And there is some reason for that. It is that fn is very close to 1 over square root of 5 times phi to the n. And therefore the quotient will give just phi. Why do we have this fact that fn is very close to 1 over square root of 5 phi to the n? It is because of the so-called Binet formula. We have an exact formula for fn in terms of the golden ratio. So this is called the Binet formula, but in fact this formula was known much before Binet, in fact more than 1 century before Binet, but as it is often the case in mathematics, it is called the Binet formula. So if you want to compute fn with a number n, which is very large, you just compute this number, phi to the n divided by 1 over square root of phi, and it's very fast to compute phi to the n. there are some very nice algorithms to do that. And this number here is very small because 1 minus quota phi divided by 2 is a real number which is between -1 and 0. So this tends to 0 very fast. So this number is very close to an integer, and this integer is the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, so there are many other properties of the Fibonacci number and the golden ratio, which you can find on my slides. But I will just stop here, and I will just conclude by telling you that if you want to know more about this, and if you want to see my slides, you just look at my website, which is here, and all the slides that I showed are there, and you will get much more information. So I thank you for your attention, and if you want to ask some question, you will find my email address on my slides, and I answer to the mail that I receive as much as possible. So thank you very much, and good luck.